Um, Thank you, NED. This is not only a great recognition of our work, but also the great encouragement in fighting for democracy, human rights, and freedom for the future generations of Tibet.
I will speak on behalf of Dr. Gello and our entire Tibet Action team. I also want to say thank you to the distinguished board and staff of NED. It is incredibly meaningful for us to be here tonight alongside the democratically elected leader of the Tibetan people, Sikyong Pemba Tserinla. We accept this award as a recognition of the heroic resistance that generation after generation of Tibetans has waged under the leadership of His Holiness, the great 14th Dalai Lama, against China's illegal occupation of our homeland. The story of China and Tibet is not actually a story of subjugation and defeat, but rather it's a David versus Goliath epic that's gone on for 70 years and as of yet remains unfinished. No matter the odds, Tibetans resist. We see this in the uprisings of 1956, 1958, 59, of massive protests through 1969, 87, 88, 89, and even 2008, when the stakes were highest for Beijing in the lead up to the Olympic Games. Even after the military clampdown following the 08 uprising, with PLA troops posted in cities, towns, and villages across Tibet, a young monk named Tape lit his body on fire and set off a wave of these painful actions, with more than 160 Tibetans engaging in this unprecedented protest movement. The reason Tibetan resistance has continued unbroken until now is because Tibetans are a proud people with a great civilization and several thousand years of history. And because the PRC assault on our people has continued unabated. Even when China was doing business with the rest of the world, seemingly getting along, cooperating, and being a somewhat responsible member of the international community, Tibetans knew they were hiding their strength, biding their time, and building their wealth and their power. We knew this because Tibet has always been the canary in the coal mine for China. China's treatment of Tibet has always been a sign or a warning for the rest of the world of the dangers ahead. In its invasion in 1949-50, the rewriting of history, redrawing of maps, we see the earliest signs of the threat the PRC would one day pose to peace and security in our world. In the imposition of martial law in March of 1989, we see foreshadowing of the Tiananmen Square massacre. And in the brutal crackdown on the 08 uprising and the subsequent sealing off of the entire Tibetan plateau, we saw the signals that even in the 21st century, life in China too could be restricted and controlled to the point of being effectively closed to the rest of the world. Something nearly unthinkable until it wasn't. And now today, we're here because the PRC continues its onslaught in Tibet. When we say at least 1 million children are now separated from their parents and made to live in the genocidal boarding school system, we're speaking of 80% of all Tibetan school-age children from as young as age 4. I have 4-year-old twins. Many of you have children, grandchildren, nieces and nephews. We can imagine how unbearable it must be to send such tiny little ones to live apart from the care and protection of their families. Dr. Gello doesn't have to imagine. An educational sociologist from Tibet who escaped to Canada in 2021, his own grandnieces were sent away to a boarding preschool in 2016. He witnessed them turning into strangers in their own home, alienation by design. It's one of the most insidious colonial strategies. And it is a clear escalation by China in Tibet as they target every pillar of Tibetan identity for elimination. Together with the Uyghur genocide, the fall of Hong Kong, the threats against Taiwan, many are asking, how do we get here? How did it get this bad? We've arrived at this moment of truth with China, not because Chinese leaders have changed. They are exactly who they've always been: unelected, unaccountable, illegitimate. This is the heart of the problem. This is what must be addressed. This is the core issue at hand. Human rights, democracy, and freedom must be at the center of the solutions and strategies sought by the foreign policy community and our leaders. How do we know this? Or how do we do this? People often assume this has to mean violence or military intervention, but that's not it either. The answer lies with the people and those who've already spoken up and risked everything for these values. It lies with Tibetans, Uyghurs, Southern Mongolians, Hong Kongers, and the Chinese citizens themselves, the ones we saw in Tiananmen Square and during the White Paper Revolution. World leaders need to stand with them more directly, clearly, and boldly, more as a central part of the plan, and they need to focus on making them stronger, and bolstering their confidence, and helping them succeed. They need to focus less on Xi Jinping and his cronies, and trying not to upset them, or just to build relations using the same failed approaches of the past. We need to think beyond them. As Dr. Gallo says, change is coming, whether we're ready or not, and we need to be ready. He also says this award is a good omen. In Tibetan, we say, Temde Sangbo. As we continue, Tibetans continue our journey of resistance towards the triumph of democracy, human rights, and freedom in Tibet. Thank you.